All right, welcome to week two. This week we are looking at three chapters that I think, again, are sort of about the institutions that go about executing national security strategy. Chapter four talks about presidential leadership and the executive branch, the fact that the presidency sort of has oversight and kind of command and control and has that take care clause power over faithful execution of the laws. Make the president sort of the fulcrum that makes foreign policy go. Chapter 5 deals with Congress, and there again we're looking at Congress's constitutional role as sort of the chief legislative branch in terms of figuring out sort of the formal architecture of national security law. And then we're looking at Homeland Security and sort of the challenges that have confronted the Department of Homeland Security and the presidency in terms of how to wield what is a really cumbersome and very difficult to control institution or set of institutions, really. So when you look at the presidency, I think it's very important to recognize just how dramatic the changes that took place in the midst of the immediate the immediate aftermath of World War II and the onset of the Cold War. The National Security Act really sort of changes the nature of the national security, the foreign policy establishment, if you will, and it gives the president a lot of tools through which to execute what we now call a White House-centered foreign policy and national security process, and that's really important for understanding, um, how the president is able to manage just again an enormous bureaucratic set of institutions. Um, there are a lot of important institutions that talk about the fact that the White House staff has expanded dramatically. You now have, of course, have the National Security Council. You have the state, the big two really, the State Department, the Department of Defense, the Central Intelligence Agency, and an often overlooked institution, the Office of Management and Budget, which really gives the president a great deal of power over spending within the executive branch, and that can be used, uh, you know, very wisely and prudently, or less so. I think if you look at the previous administration and the people that Donald Trump put in that position, I think you have to be a little skeptical of what happened there. I think also it's important to look at the constraints on presidential power. Unpopular presidents have less latitude to take dramatic actions. There are interest groups that sort of hem the president in and constrain their actions. Path dependency policies that are already made. Right now we're looking at the Biden administration's Justice Department defending Donald Trump in a defamation lawsuit. I don't understand that at all. And then you've got, of course, the challenge of bureaucracy. The fact that because the power of staff is so important and staff equals capacity, but it comes at a cost. And the reality is that presidents oftentimes confront bureaucratic agencies that have particular ways of looking at their job, a culture that informs these folks, and it makes them resistant to presidents that want to do things differently or crossways to those ideas. Now, when you come to Congress, again, the Constitution does give Congress significant powers, but the nature of the institution itself makes it unwieldy and very difficult for Congress to play a very assertive role. And so very often what you're looking at is, Congress's power tends to be sort of after the fact. And a lot of what happens with congressional authority is executed through oversight. And there are a number of very important, congressional committees that have a lot of responsibility for managing the national security process. That's especially true, for example, with intelligence, where their concerns led to the creation of the House and Senate Select Committees on Intelligence, which historically have been the two most bipartisan committees. That's kind of broken down in the House. Um, as far as it relates to, again, national security, presidents have attempted to, or I mean, Congress has attempted to rein in the president's war-making authority with, at best, indifferent results. And so again, the question is, does Congress have that ability to to kind of put a check on presidential power and prerogatives? Finally, you've got Homeland Security, and again, the simple question there is, can it identify a clear mission? Can it, exercise the sufficient control over its separate parts to make it work well? And thus far, the answer has to be no. It has not done a good job because, in part, it cannot identify and prioritize the missions that are expected of it. So. This is sort of the challenge of our time. Is Homeland Security worthy of keeping? Should we break it back up into the independent executive agencies that it was cobbled together from? I'm not necessarily against the idea of having a centralized Homeland Security apparatus, but I am also very concerned about the potential for that formidable domestic Homeland Security force placed in the wrong hands. And I think, again, the example of the previous administration should give us all pause. So these are the 3 chapters we're dealing with. I'll have some other written questions down below this video. So again, let's have a great week of discussion.